On a seemingly ordinary Tuesday, as soft light crept over Rivertown's main thoroughfare, Lisa Jefferson, recently anointed as the city's police chief, piloted her sleek ebony sedan along Interstate 47. The autumn air, cool and fragrant with fallen leaves, mingled with the quiet rhythm of her morning drive. In that peaceful solitude, her thoughts brimmed with ideas to inspire her team, unaware that fate was poised to intervene. Despite a decade of steadfast service that had propelled her into leadership, Lisa's humility shone as brightly as her achievements. Every drive was a cherished ritual, a time to reflect on the values that had shaped her career and to plan for the future. The gentle hum of her engine and the distant city murmur created a soothing symphony. Yet even in that calm, an undercurrent of impending challenge stirred. As her car neared exit 13, a sudden flash of blue and red shattered the early serenity. In her rearview mirror, the lights of a police cruiser pulsed like warning beacons, accompanied by a shrill siren that disrupted her meditative journey. Confused, she wasn't speeding, her registration was current, and her route was flawless. Lisa checked her dashboard. Still, the relentless signals beckoned her to pull over, setting the stage for what was to come. Without delay, Lisa steered onto the shoulder and brought her vehicle to a deliberate stop. Through the side mirror, she saw two officers emerge from the cruiser with determined precision. Clad in sharply pressed uniforms and dark sunglasses that masked their intentions, they advanced methodically. One tall officer, his buzz cut neat as a razor's edge, tapped on her window with a flashlight beam that sliced through the calm interior. Lowering her window, Lisa offered a polite, measured greeting. "Good morning, officers. Is there a problem?" Her voice was steady even as a flicker of annoyance stirred within her. The taller officer, his badge reading only Officer James, leaned close with an expression as opaque as stone. In a curt tone, he demanded her license and registration. Without a word, Lisa retrieved the documents, her mind already racing with silent questions about the true reason for this unexpected stop. On the opposite side of her car, a shorter, gruff-voiced officer peered in with a look that bordered on accusation. "What business brings you here?" he demanded, his tone heavy with suspicion. "I'm just heading to work," Lisa replied, her voice calm yet firm. As Officer James scrutinized her license, his partner, Officer Grady, paced around her vehicle as if hunting for hidden missteps. Their whispered exchanges and furtive glances deepened her unease, suggesting that this was no ordinary routine check. Minutes stretched on as tension coiled in the air. Lisa's fingers tapped a quiet rhythm on the steering wheel, each tap echoing her mounting disquiet. Finally, with his face hardened into resolve, Officer James stepped out of the car and ordered, "Step out of the vehicle." Shock mingled with determination in Lisa's eyes as she asked, "Excuse me, can you explain why?" Before any answer could come, Officer Grady's impatient bark from the passenger side left her no choice. With measured reluctance, she opened her door and stepped onto the pavement. Immediately, the officers closed in, their hands resting near their holsters in a silent posture of readiness. Standing tall, Lisa met their advance with an unwavering gaze. "I'd appreciate an explanation for what's happening," she stated, her tone both clear and commanding. A wry smile flickered briefly on Officer James's face as he dismissed her inquiry with a vague remark, "We've received reports linking a vehicle like yours to possible illicit activities." His words hung in the air like a dark omen. Lisa's eyes narrowed in disbelief. "Illicit activities? What exactly are you suggesting?" she demanded, her voice edged with incredulity. Officer Grady's arms folded defensively as he interjected that they would handle the questioning. In that charged moment, Lisa, no stranger to the challenges of authority, especially as a black woman in a system too often marred by bias, felt the sting of an unspoken assumption. Had they even bothered to check her credentials, or was her very presence enough to brand her as a suspect? As the officers began a cursory search of her car, a smug satisfaction played on their faces. It was as if they were engaged in a dangerous game, confident that their authority would silence any protest. Lisa watched every motion with a cool detachment, silently preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Then, without warning, Officer James withdrew his hand from the holster and declared, "There's nothing incriminating here. However, you'll need to come with us for further questioning." A subtle, knowing smile tugged at Lisa's lips, a quiet acknowledgement that the situation was about to reverse. "Are you certain you want to pursue this?" she asked, her tone laced with challenge. The officers exchanged baffled looks, their silence hanging heavy as moments ticked by. Before their confusion could settle, a black SUV pulled up behind them. From its doorway emerged Deputy Chief Martin, a figure whose reputation for decisiveness was well known. "Is everything all right here?" his authoritative voice boomed, freezing the officers in place. In that instant, reality crashed down on them. The woman they had detained was none other than their superior, the newly appointed police chief. Faces drained of color, Officer James's hand dropped from its position, and Officer Grady stood rooted to the spot. The gravity of their error, and the personal betrayal it implied, sank in. Deputy Chief Martin's presence transformed what had been a routine stop into a stark reckoning of duty and honor. The officers now fumbled for an explanation, their earlier confidence evaporating into palpable dread. Stammering, Officer James finally offered a halting justification. "We stopped you because your vehicle matched a description tied to suspicious activity." His words did little to quell the rising tide of dismay. Deputy Chief Martin's gaze shifted to Lisa, who stood with her arms crossed and eyes unyielding. It was evident this was no inadvertent mistake but a deliberate test of protocol, a test they had so disastrously failed. With a calm yet cutting tone, Lisa pressed on. "Did you even verify my identity before pulling me over? Did you assume my being a black woman behind the wheel was enough to mark me as a threat?" Her words cut sharply through the lingering silence, exposing the bitter irony of the encounter. Officer Grady shifted uncomfortably, his feeble defense lost under the weight of her scrutiny. "I suppose you thought I wouldn't question your actions, just comply without protest," she added, leaving no room for evasions. Deputy Chief Martin's voice then bore down with the full force of authority. "Do you realize the seriousness of this violation? You have harassed the head of this department under false pretenses, risking the reputation of our entire force." The officers' attempts to justify themselves crumbled under the unyielding truth of her words. Their silence was an admission of guilt, a realization that no excuse could mend the breach of trust. After a long, heavy pause, Deputy Chief Martin asked, "What do you propose we do now?" With measured resolve, Lisa responded, "I'm not prepared to terminate you outright, but there will be consequences." Her tone left no doubt, disciplinary action was inevitable. "Both of you will be suspended immediately, pending a thorough internal investigation. This isn't about saving face or avoiding bad press, it's about upholding justice and ensuring every citizen is treated with respect." Deputy Chief Martin's nod sealed their fate, and as Lisa stepped closer, her gaze locked with theirs. "If you're to wear this badge, earn it with honor every single day," she intoned, the challenge clear and irrevocable. In that decisive moment, the calm of the morning was irreparably broken, replaced by a promise of accountability and reform. The incident, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked bias, set a new standard within the department, one where respect and justice must always prevail.